Jason stepped off the small cargo ship and into the dusty alien port. The air smelled like metal and spices, and voices in many languages filled the sky. He came to trade some scrap parts, maybe find food and fuel for his next trip. It was just another stop in a long journey through strange systems. He walked through the marketplace looking at stalls filled with glowing fruits, soft fabrics, and tools he couldn't name. No one paid much attention to him. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, but not unseen. He liked that, being just another face in a busy crowd. Then it happened, without warning. 4 tall alien women appeared beside him. They were beautiful in a strange, powerful way. Tall and smooth-skinned, with glowing eyes and long silver hair. They wore armor-like robes that shimmered with moving light. Before Jason could react, 2 of them grabbed his arms, the other 2 lifted his legs. He shouted, "Hey, what are you doing?" But his words were lost in the noise. The women didn't speak, they only smiled at each other. They carried him like a toy, light in their arms, walking smoothly through the market as if nothing was wrong. People stared, some with curiosity, some with fear, but no one helped. No guards stopped them, no one called out. Jason struggled, kicking his legs, but their grip was like iron. He wasn't hurt, just confused and embarrassed. "Put me down." He yelled again, but they ignored him. He looked around and realized something strange. Everyone was stepping aside, bowing their heads slightly as the women passed. They were important, powerful, or feared. The women carried him up a large set of crystal stairs that led into a wide building that looked like a temple. Tall white pillars surrounded it, and blue fire danced in floating bowls. They pushed open golden doors and entered a glowing hall. Inside, soft music played from hidden places, and the air smelled sweet, like flowers and rain. They laid Jason gently on a soft floating bed, then stepped back. One of them spoke for the first time, her voice smooth and echoing. "You are the chosen male," she said in broken English. Jason sat up, shocked. "Chosen for what? I didn't choose anything." Another woman touched his shoulder gently. "The stars have chosen." Jason looked around, trying to understand. The walls were covered with symbols and glowing art, showing scenes of humans and aliens together. He saw a picture of a human man standing with a crown on his head, holding hands with one of the silver women. What was this place? "Why did you take me?" Jason asked, trying to stay calm. The women shared a look. Then one said, "You are needed for the ceremony of balance." "What ceremony?" Jason asked, but they only bowed and left the room. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss. Jason stood up and looked around. The room was beautiful but strange. There were soft cushions, a glowing pool of water, and a table with food and drinks. Everything was made to comfort him, but that made it worse. He felt like a guest and a prisoner at the same time. He walked to the door and tried to open it, but it didn't move. He knocked, shouted, even kicked, but no response came. He sat down on the bed, heart pounding, mind spinning. Why him? Why now? And what was this ceremony of balance they spoke of? Jason had traveled to many places, seen many things, but nothing like this. He looked at the painting of the human man again. The man was smiling, standing proudly with the alien woman beside him. Was that his future? Was he supposed to be someone's partner or something worse? Night came quickly and the glowing lights dimmed around him. He lay on the soft bed, not sleeping, just thinking. In the silence, he heard chanting from far below, soft and rhythmic. It sounded like voices repeating his name, again and again. Jason shivered, not from cold, but from the unknown. Whatever was happening, it had already begun. Jason woke slowly, the air soft and warm around him. A sweet scent filled the room, like flowers and fresh rain. He opened his eyes and blinked at the soft golden light coming from the ceiling. The bed beneath him was floating just a few inches above the ground. Gently rocking like a cradle, he sat up slowly, his muscles still tense from the strange events of yesterday. Everything felt calm, but that only made him more uneasy. He stood and looked around again, hoping it was just a dream. But the same, floating furniture, the glowing pool, and strange crystal walls surrounded him. He was still in the temple, still trapped. Jason walked to the door again and placed his hand on it. It didn't budge, just like before. A soft sound made him turn. The door slid open, and a new woman entered the room. She was shorter than the others, younger maybe, with violet eyes, and a calm expression. She held a silver bowl filled with steaming water and soft cloths. Jason stepped back as she walked in, unsure of her purpose. She bowed slightly. "I am Zalari," she said gently, her voice soft but steady. "I am here to care for you." Jason frowned. "I don't need care. I need answers." Zalari looked up at him, her eyes full of something he couldn't read, sadness or duty. "You were taken for a reason," she said. "You are not a prisoner." Jason crossed his arms. "Then why can't I leave?" Zalari didn't answer. She simply dipped a cloth into the warm water and held it out to him. He hesitated, then took it and wiped his face. The warmth felt good against his skin. Zalari watched him quietly, then moved to a table and opened a box filled with robes. "These are for the ceremony," she said, placing them neatly on the bed. The robes shimmered in the light, silver, soft, and trimmed with strange glowing symbols. Jason picked one up and looked at it, confused. "I'm not putting this on until I know what's going on," he said. Zalari gave a small smile. "You will understand soon." She brought him food next. Strange fruits, soft bread, and a drink that sparkled in its cup. Jason didn't want to trust it, but hunger won. The food was warm, sweet, and filled him faster than he expected. As he ate, Zalari sat nearby, watching him silently. "Why me?" Jason asked finally. "Why did you choose a human?" Zalari looked at the floor, her voice a whisper now. "The stars chose," she said. "It is written in the crystals, in the ancient lights." Jason frowned. "You keep saying that, but what does it mean?" Zalari stood and walked to the wall, pressing her hand against a glowing circle. A part of the wall slid open, revealing a tall glass window. Outside, Jason saw the temple sitting high above the city. Alien women were gathering below, dressed in robes, placing flowers and lights everywhere. Music echoed faintly through the air. Zalari pointed toward the center square where a giant crystal stood tall. "That is the Heartstone," she said. "It called your name." Jason stepped closer, his breath catching his name. Jason was glowing faintly in the crystal surface, written in both English and alien script. He touched the glass, heart pounding. How is that even possible? Zalari replied, "Only one male is called every 100 years. "And what happens to him?" Jason asked quietly. Zalari met his eyes. "He becomes the balance." Jason pulled away from the window, his mind racing. Was this fate? A mistake? Or something planned long ago? Zalari walked to him and held out her hand. "You do not have to fear," she said gently. "We will not harm you." Jason didn't take her hand, but he didn't step away either. "I just want the truth," he said. "No more riddles." Zalari nodded slowly. "Then tomorrow at the festival the truth will be shown." Jason looked back at the glowing city, at the crystal. The whole world seemed to wait for him. He felt small and heavy at the same time. A man caught in something far bigger than himself. That night Zalari sat by the door, refusing to leave. She said it was custom, that the chosen must never sleep alone. Jason lay on the floating bed, watching her in the dim light. She did not speak, did not move, only watched over him like a silent guard. And for the first time, Jason felt a strange calm. Not because he understood, but because he wasn't alone, not anymore. The next morning, Jason woke to the sound of drums, slow and deep, like a heartbeat echoing through stone. Golden light shone through the tall crystal windows, warming the room like a sunrise made of fire. Zalari was already standing at the door, wearing a long silver robe with glowing patterns moving across the fabric like water. Her eyes met his, calm but serious. "It is time," she said softly. Jason sat up slowly, still unsure of everything. He had dreamed of stars, of voices calling his name, and a fire rising from the ground. Now the dream seemed to continue into the waking world. Zilari held out a robe, simpler than hers but still shining. Jason hesitated, then took it. "I'm not saying I accept this," he muttered, "but I'll play along. For now." Zilari gave a small nod. No smile this time, only respect. When he stepped outside the room, 2 guards in glowing armor joined them. They walked through wide halls where alien women bowed as he passed. It made Jason feel strange, like he was royalty, or a sacrifice. He kept glancing at Zilari, who walked silently by his side. Each corner of the temple was decorated with floating flowers, tiny lights, and hanging stones that hummed softly. It felt like the entire place was alive, watching him. Finally, they stepped through a golden archway that opened into a massive arena. Jason froze, breath caught in his throat. Thousands of alien women filled the stone seats that rose high into the sky. They all turned toward him, and the moment they saw him, they cheered. It wasn't just polite clapping, it was wild, excited, like a celebration. Some even threw glowing petals into the air. Drums pounded louder now, and voices began to chant. Jason was led to a raised platform at the center of the arena. Zilari stood behind him, hands folded, expression calm. Then the queen entered. She wore a robe so bright it hurt Jason's eyes, her face hidden behind a veil of stars. The crowd went silent, not one sound in the air. She raised her hands, and the floating stones above the arena began to glow. "My daughters," she spoke in a voice like music. "The chosen stands among us." Jason shifted uncomfortably, trying not to show how nervous he felt. The queen continued, "The Heartstone has spoken, and the balance must be kept." One by one, selected women stepped forward, each bowing to Jason and presenting a token: crystal feathers, glowing rings, strange flowers. Zilari whispered in his ear, "They are offering themselves as bondmates." Jason blinked. "All of them?" She nodded. "Only one will be chosen." Jason felt trapped, like a prize on a table. He looked into the crowd. Some eyes were filled with hope, others with. The cheers faded slowly as the queen raised her hand. Jason stood on the stone platform, heart beating fast, hands clenched by his sides. The air around him shimmered with energy. But all he could feel was the weight of too many eyes. He wasn't ready for this, not for bonding, not for destiny. He just wanted answers. The queen stepped forward, her glowing veil trailing behind her like liquid light. Her voice was soft but clear, filled with power. "Come," she said to Jason. "It is time you see the truth." Zilari gave him a small nod, her face unreadable. Jason followed the queen as she walked toward the back of the arena. A wall opened as they approached, revealing a hidden passage lined with glowing stones. They walked in silence, the echo of their footsteps swallowed by the soft light. The hallway ended at a circular room deep beneath the temple. In the center stood a tall crystal, pulsing slowly with a golden light. Images flickered across its surface. Old ships, battles, faces from a time long gone. The queen placed her hand on the crystal and turned to Jason. "Long ago," she said, "there was a great war that nearly ended our kind." Jason watched the crystal as it showed burning cities and falling stars. "We were a proud people, but our strength was not enough," she continued. "One human ship crash-landed on our world, carrying a single wounded man. The crystal shifted, showing a younger human male being carried by alien women, just like Jason. He did not run from us," the queen said. "He chose to stay. He taught us peace, showed us how to rebuild, and gave us a bond of trust." Jason stepped closer, watching the man in the vision lead their people. Children played around him. Alien women smiled. A new city rose from ash. "He became the first balance," the queen said. "And with him, our future began." "But why only humans?" Jason asked quietly. "Why not your own kind?" The queen looked into the crystal, her voice soft. "Our blood was damaged by war, our light dimmed," she explained. "But human life carries something rare. Resilience, balance. and a spark that our science could not copy. Jason felt cold and warm at the same time. He wasn't just a guest here. He was part of an ancient plan. Every century, she said, the Heartstone calls out to the stars for one human. Only the worthy one hears it. Jason shook his head slowly. I didn't hear anything. You came, the Queen said. That is enough. He looked again at the image of the first human. In his eyes, Jason saw something familiar. Fear, then strength, then peace. So, this isn't about control, he asked. You're not forcing me? The Queen stepped back and nodded. We offer you choice, not chains, she said. But if you choose to walk away, our bond fades and our people will wait another 100 years. Jason stared at the glowing floor. 100 years, waiting in silence, hoping a single human would appear again. What kind of loneliness was that? He turned toward Zilari, who had followed quietly. You knew this? He asked her. She nodded. I was trained from birth to serve the balance. But I never thought I'd meet him, she added softly. Jason saw it now, not just duty in her eyes, but hope and something deeper. You have time, the Queen said gently. No one will force your hand. The lights dimmed slightly as the crystal dimmed. The vision faded, leaving only their reflections in the golden surface. Jason walked back through the passage, his mind racing. He wasn't just caught in a game, he was walking through the footsteps of history, but the question remained. Would he continue the path, or break it? That night, back in his room, Zilari sat by the wall in silence. Jason didn't speak for a long time. Finally, he asked, Do you believe in this balance? Zilari looked up. I believe in you, she said. Not in the stone, not in the stories, just him. And that changed something inside Jason. Something small, but powerful. He didn't feel like a toy anymore. He felt like a man standing at the edge of something big, something real. The temple grew quiet after sunset. Soft lights floated through the halls, casting long shadows that moved like whispers. Jason sat near the window, staring at the stars. His mind was a storm of questions. They told him he was special, chosen, part of some ancient pact, but something inside him still felt wrong, like there was more he hadn't been told. Zilari had fallen asleep on the floor beside the door as she did every night. Her presence was calm, loyal, and gentle. But tonight Jason didn't want calm. He wanted truth. He stood quietly and tiptoed past her. The door slid open with a soft hiss, surprisingly unlocked. For the first time, no guard stood outside. The hallway was empty. Jason moved silently, heart pounding in his chest. He followed the path through a narrow passage he hadn't noticed before. It curved downward, deeper into the temple's stone heart. The walls became colder, darker, until only the glow of the floor guided his way. After what felt like minutes of walking, he reached a round door covered in old symbols. It pulsed with faint golden light, almost like it was alive. He placed his hand on the center. The symbols lit up and the door opened slowly. Cold air rushed out, carrying the scent of dust and silence. Jason stepped inside and the door closed behind him. The chamber was massive, ancient, and filled with strange machines. Most of them were broken, covered in vines and moss. But one machine in the center still glowed softly. It looked like a pod, tall and egg-shaped with wires stretching into the ceiling. Jason approached it, slowly. As he got closer, the machine came to life. A beam of blue light scanned his body from head to toe. Then a soft voice echoed in the chamber. Human match confirmed. Activating memory stream. The pod opened like a flower, revealing a hologram inside. Jason gasped. It was a human. An old man with tired eyes and a weathered face. He wore a space pilot's uniform with the Earth Alliance emblem on his shoulder. The hologram spoke. If you're seeing this, then you're the next one, like I was. Jason leaned in, listening carefully. I was the first, the man said. Crashed here by accident, found by the alien queens. They healed me then, Asked for help, I stayed. I bonded. But I also discovered a secret. Jason's heart jumped. The hologram continued. This planet is on a slow path to collapse. The balance they speak of isn't just about peace. It's about survival. Only when human energy merges with theirs can their biosystem stabilize. It's not just tradition. It's science. Jason stepped back, shocked. Was that what they meant all along? He wasn't just part of a love story or royal tale. He was a key, literally a power source to keep their world alive. The hologram flickered again. They don't lie, the man said. But they don't tell you everything either. You must choose, but choose knowing the truth. The image faded and the pod powered down. Jason stood in silence, the chill of the chamber sinking into his bones. He now knew the real reason behind the ceremony. Behind the kindness, the robes, the smiles. They needed him, truly. But the question remained. Did they want him for who he was or only what he could do? As he walked back through the cold tunnel, the temple felt different. The glowing walls looked softer, less magical, more fragile. He was no longer the lost visitor or the silent guest. He was the man holding the choice between their future and nothing. Zilari was awake when he returned. She didn't ask where he had gone, she simply looked at him, eyes full of quiet understanding. Jason sat beside her, the silence thick between them. Then, in a low voice, he asked, Zilari, if I say no, what happens to your people? She looked away, her voice small. We wait another 100 years, she said. But many won't survive that long. Jason didn't sleep that night. He watched the stars, remembering the old man's face, remembering the truth beneath. The beauty and knowing he had to decide soon, not just for them, but for himself. The sun rose slowly over the alien city, its light spilling across the temple like golden mist. Jason hadn't closed his eyes once. He sat near the window, staring at the tall crystal towers and glowing trees beyond. His mind was heavy with everything he had seen, everything he now knew. The truth in the hidden chamber still echoed in his thoughts. He was not just the chosen one. He was a living key to their survival. They needed him, not for who he was, but for what he carried. Inside, Zilari stood quietly near the door, her hands folded in front of her. She hadn't asked him anything, not even why he looked so distant. She only waited, silent and patient, like a shadow made of calm. Jason finally turned toward her. I want to leave, he said, voice steady. Zilari blinked once but didn't react with anger or sadness. Then you are free to go, she said gently. I will walk you to your ship. That surprised him. He had expected arguments, guilt, or desperate pleading, but instead, she simply nodded and opened the door. As they walked through the long glowing halls, no guards stopped them, no queens, no priests, no whispers. The temple felt quiet, accepting, as if it already knew his choice. They reached the outer gate where Jason's small ship was waiting, covered in dust but still intact. Zilari stopped at the edge of the steps, her hands still folded. Jason turned to her, unsure what to say. He searched her eyes for disappointment but found only peace. You're really letting me go, he said, more surprised than thankful. Zilari nodded. We never owned you. Jason took a slow breath. But without me, your people might fade. Yes, she said, but we will not steal your soul to save ours. He looked at the ship, its ramp already lowered. One step, and he'd be free. Back to the stars. But something held his feet in place. Something quiet, something heavy. He remembered Zilari watching him sleep, feeding him without a word, caring for him not like a tool, but like a man who mattered. He remembered her smile when he asked dumb questions, the way she never flinched even when he shouted in fear. She had never begged him, never forced his hand. She simply stayed. And sometimes staying is the loudest kind of love. Jason looked back at her. If I stayed, If I chose this, it would have to be my way, he said firmly. Zalari tilted her head. What way? Jason stepped closer. I choose who I bond with. No tradition, no pressure, no selection. Zalari was quiet, then bowed her head slightly. I understand, she whispered. Jason reached out and gently touched her hand. I choose you, he said. For the first time, Zalari's eyes widened, not with surprise, but with something deeper. Hope, warmth, something she had hidden behind duty for too long. They walked back to the temple together, not as prisoner and guard, not as chosen and protector, but as two people, side by side. When they entered the temple again, the lights shifted. A soft hum rose from the walls as if the building itself recognized their decision. The High Queen met them in the central hall. She looked at Jason, then at Zalari, and smiled without speaking. She simply stepped aside, allowing them to pass. The Heartstone began to glow once more, not by command, not by force, but because a real choice had been made. Jason and Zalari stepped onto the bonding platform. Thousands of alien women watched from the balconies, silent and still. Jason held Zalari's hand tightly. The lights swirled around them, wrapping them. In golden strands like threads of fate, Zalari whispered, Are you afraid? Jason smiled faintly. Yeah, but not of you. She smiled back, and in that moment the platform lit up like a star. The Heartstone pulsed, and an energy flowed through Jason's body. It wasn't pain. It was warmth, strength, connection. For the first time, he didn't feel like a stranger here. He felt like he belonged, and in the eyes of the people and in the calm breath of the temple, the balance was restored, not because of duty, but because of heart. The temple trembled softly as the golden threads wrapped around Jason and Zalari. They stood on the raised platform hand in hand as the Heartstone pulsed like a living heartbeat. The crowd of alien women watched in silence, their faces full of awe, hope, and quiet joy. Above them, the glowing stones hovered in the air, slowly rotating, drawing symbols in light. This was not just a ceremony. This was history repeating. No, continuing. Jason felt the warmth travel from the stone into his chest. It wasn't burning, it wasn't painful. It felt like someone lighting a candle inside his soul. He gasped softly as his eyes filled with light, and in that moment, he saw it all. Visions flooded his mind. The first human standing with the alien queen, the war that almost broke this world, the broken stars, the lost cities, the healing that followed. He saw Zalari as a child, alone in a garden, training with the elders, waiting for the chosen who would one day arrive. Jason fell to his knees as the vision faded, not from pain but from the weight of everything he now carried. Zalari knelt beside him, holding his hand tightly. You saw it, she whispered. He nodded slowly. I saw everything. The Heartstone pulsed one last time, then dimmed to a soft glow. The golden light faded from the air, but something new remained, something unseen yet deeply felt. Jason stood up, taller somehow, his body steady, his mind clear. He was still himself, but now, something more. The queen stepped forward, removing her veil for the first time. Her face was lined with time and wisdom. She bowed to Jason, not as a ruler, but as a woman, honoring a sacred promise. The balance is complete, she said, and the future is bright. The crowd began to chant Jason's name, not in command, but in celebration. Some placed their hands over their hearts, others raised their palms to the sky. Zalari looked up at him, her voice trembling. You gave us more than survival, she said. You gave us hope. Jason turned, slowly facing the crowd. He raised Zalari's hand in his own. I didn't come here to be a hero, he said loudly. I didn't even come by choice. But what I found was something real. A place that needed me, not to lead but to stand with them. The temple filled with cheers, music, and waves of light. The city outside lit up in response, the towers glowing brighter than ever. Even the sky seemed to shift, stars above pulsing in soft rhythm. Later that night, Jason and Zalari walked through the temple gardens together. The wind was gentle, carrying the scent of glowing blossoms. Solari leaned against him, silent and peaceful. "You never asked for this," she said softly. Jason smiled. "No," he replied. "But I'm glad it found me anyway." They walked, past the statues of ancient heroes and beside a newly carved space, empty, waiting. Jason stopped. "Is that for—" Solari nodded. "Your story will be placed here." Jason laughed softly. "Let's hope I deserve it." Solari looked up at him, her eyes soft. "You already do," she said. "You chose, when you didn't have to." They sat beneath a glowing tree, watching fireflies swirl above the leaves. Jason looked at the stars, thinking about Earth. Would he go back? Maybe. Someday. But for now, this was where he belonged, not as a prisoner, not as a tool, but as someone loved, trusted, and finally, free. In a world once broken, a human heart had become its light, and as the temple sang into the night, Jason closed his eyes, Solari resting against his shoulder, knowing that for the first time in a long, long journey, he was home.